Hello, 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 beautiful unicorns. Happy Tuesday. Yana Kasperczak coming into you live from Ontario, where it is snowing yet again on March 19th. And I am your spiritual awakening core energy coach, and it is my soul's purpose to help you get your shit together so you can break free from that mental prison that you find yourself in and build a life and build a business that you are not only proud of, but are excited to wake up to every single day. And today, the topic that I have chosen for all of you to share on the story time with Yana Kasperczak today is productivity, perfectionism. Why 100% productivity is a myth and it's an illusion of business. So we'll talk about the illusion of business. We'll talk about this perfectionism when it comes to productivity and the realities of what happens when we live life in such ways. I'm going to start off with everything is a mindset. Every single thing that we are experiencing, that we are living through, whether we want to live through it or not, it is based on our mindset. The more time that you spend really understanding yourself, the more likely you will start to see that the world that you are living in is a self-created world subconsciously, and that you start to notice the programming that you have received throughout your life, which started prior to before you were actually born, which started in the womb. Let's think of you as a brand new computer, because this is what humans are. Every human is just like a brand new computer. Some of you actually, I know, just got a brand new computer, so I'm using this analogy for you. So as a brand new computer, you have no programs in this computer. You're brand spanking new. There's nothing in there. It's completely blank. So when you get this computer, you start to put and add programs into this computer. And when you have this computer that's now a year old, 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, it has certain programs in it, and it's going to run and operate based on those programs. Now, there's a difference between a computer and a human, and the difference is that computer does not gain consciousness, but you as a human, you do gain consciousness. See, for the first 7 years of your life, you are receiving the program. You're not conscious. You're not aware of what you're receiving. And then at about 8 years old, you start to wake up and you start to recognize yourself in this program. And then this is where the I becomes more present. This is where you start to recognize that there is this narrator that is a passenger with you. And it can get a little confusing which one is you, which one is a narrator. Now, when you reach about the age 27, 28, this is where you tap into your mind on a much deeper level, where you start to become the analyst. You start to analyze and process your life, your experiences. You start to question things. And a child, you were asking questions, but in a curious, childlike way, because you wanted to learn, because you were a scientist. And based on how you were raised, you became a certain way based on how you were raised and how the questions were answered or how they weren't. Whether your curiosity continued throughout your teen years and adult years, or it was shut down at a young age where, don't ask me why, I don't know, or stop asking, and you were just left to figure things out on your own. And that's not to say that there's a right way or the wrong way. It's to say that this is how we were raised, how some of us choose to raise our kids, and whether it's a conscious choice or an unconscious choice. This is not exactly what we're talking about here, because we're going to be getting into this state of programming that we have received that has conditioned us to, in the mindset, to be busy and productive all day, every day, like a computer, like a machine. But even a computer needs to have a break once in a while. It needs to be turned off so it can rest and it can operate better. Because if you never turn off your computer, it's not going to last as long. It's going to have a shorter life, if you will. Now with humans, because we are a lot like computers, that we're running on this default program that we're not consciously aware of until we spend time to understand, I want to ask you a question. And I would love to see your response in the comments. If you're ready, of course, because, if you know me well, you know that the questions I ask are not always easy. And they require a little bit of deep diving and reflection on yourself. The question is how well do you know yourself? How well do you know yourself? Most people will say that they know themselves pretty well, and that they know exactly who they are and what they want and why they want it. But when we start asking questions, we start to see that there's a lot of holes in there, in the knowing, and that it is usually the ego that is speaking. And it's, in some people, it's a defense mechanism in one way, shape, or form, that I know who I am and I know what I want, I know why I want it, but yet they struggle to understand why they do the things that they do, why they say the things that they say, why they show up in a way that they don't want to be showing up, why they feel a certain way, why they react instead of responding. And it really comes down to those people that often say that they know who they are, that they actually don't know who they are, and they do a lot of distracting behaviors that don't allow them to be still, to sit still, to go within, to listen to that internal dialogue, to hear their thoughts, to understand their feelings and emotions, to really understand their programming. And the reason for that is an obvious one to many people, but to other people, it's not so obvious. And it is that fear of, am I going to like who I am when I see who I am, when I hear who I am? And the answer to that is two-sided. Initially, no, you're not going to like to see and hear who you are. You're not supposed to. Because what you see and hear and understand of who you are is not who you truly are. It is just a bunch of programs that have been given to you and put into you as the computer that you are subconsciously running off. It is your default program. It is your default tendency to react or respond, to fight back or to shut down. All of us are a bunch of programs. And no, you're not going to like who you see, who you hear, who you are initially, because that is not the true you. But the more you take time to understand those programs, the more you will start to see that this is not who you are. This is just a program. And then you start to recognize that, hey, wait a minute. I can rewrite those programs to the ones that I actually want and desire, to the ones that are actually me. So if this is how I respond and I don't like how I respond, which means that if you don't like it, that means it's not the true you, because the true you would love. You love the true real you. And this is when something happens in your life and you respond in a way that is authentic to you and you like it and it feels good. Those are the things I want you to start paying attention to and take notes and question and go deep within so you can understand who you are and perhaps reflect on how the previous version of you would have responded or reacted to that same situation, to that same experience, and see the programming that you received. It's like everything is essentially black and white. It is and it isn't, right? The yin and yang, as we have here, the good and the bad, and the you that you start to uncover you don't like, it is that shadow, it is that dark side that hides and lurks within you, in the darkest parts of you. And you don't like it because it's not the real you. The real you is the happy, joyful one. The one that is happy. The one that knows and trusts the world and trusts that everything will work out in the way that it's meant to. The one that knows that you are wealthy because you have love in your life. And because you have love in your life and you understand that love is the highest and purest emotion. Love is all there is. Love is a state of being. Love is creation and existence itself. And it takes time to understand the concept of love. And it takes time because we're meant to spend time in reflection every single day, to reflect back on our life and our life experience. Hey Lance, how are you doing? Thanks for hopping on and saying hi. To understand what love is, we need to experience what love isn't. That's why one of the things that I do with the women that I work with is, in helping them understand what they want, is start with a list of what you don't want. Those are easy to see. Those we know on like a top of our head. So share with me, what are the things that you don't want in your life? You don't want to either physically have in your life, or you don't want to experience, or you don't want to feel those things in your life. What are those things that you don't want in your life? Right? The darkness. What don't you want in that darkness in your life? And when you recognize the things that you don't want in your life, it is much easier to see the opposite of what you want. And you will start to recognize that all the things that you do want are rooted in love. Good morning, Laura, to you as well. We cannot see the darkness without light, because it would be too dark to see darkness. We wouldn't see it. That's why even at night, that there is light. There's always hope. There's always a glimmer of hope. So now let's get into the depth of one of these programs that you have received, of why you feel like you need to be busy all the time, why you feel like you need to be productive all the time. And it really does come down to the program, as I talk about all the time, which is the conditioning that you have received. From a young age, you have this belief that has been reinforced into you day in and day out. The notion that success and achievement are directly tied to self-worth, which leads people, you, to internalize this belief as this is the truth. That your self-worth is dependent on what you achieve. And each of us have received different programming of what achievement means. For some people, it is academic. For most people, it's actually academic. But for some cultures, for some societies, it is certain academic achievements where must be a doctor, must be a lawyer. A vet is not a doctor. It needs to be a doctor. And then when it comes to a lawyer, it must be the best and the most biggest and glorified type of a lawyer. And anything less is not worthy. It means you are worthless, you're not good enough. And when we go to school, looking at the grades, when we were just being graded with numbers, being told that this is the number, the certain standard that dictates that you are worthy. Anything below is not worthy. And depending on the parents that you had, some were understanding, while others, no, an A plus is the only thing, or 100% is the only thing that is going to be acceptable. Anything below is unacceptable. How realistic is that standard? Some of you have lived your life that way. And there's a lot of questions that I can ask, but how has that affected your mental health and your perception of yourself in a way of how worthy do you feel every single day, every single minute of the day? The next one is this culture that we are all part of and all exposed to, and that is comparison. When we compare ourselves to everyone else in our life, and I mean, this one is, I feel like all of us have been exposed to this one, and we're comparing ourselves to our siblings, our friends, our peers, our classmates, our partners. We're just comparing ourselves to other people, and comparison itself is neither good nor bad. It's there, and it allows us to understand ourselves more, but we have been conditioned to do it in a negative way, in a way that is actually draining, and in a way of that makes us feel unworthy, that we will never be that way, we will never have that, we will never do that. And when we say never, we're closing the doors to possibilities, and we are really saying that I no longer trust that I am worthy, or that good things will come my way. We close the door. In a world where everyone highlights reels are showcased on social media, individuals feel pressure to constantly strive for more, measuring their worth against somebody else's accomplishment. Where I'll share one where I share meal prep reels, and I know that there are some women who wish and dream of having the ability to create their own meal plans and to have meal prep day for the whole entire week. Now, I share them because this is something I enjoy, and I enjoy the process, and it's honestly, it's quick and easy for me to put those pictures together through the app to create that reel, and it's content creation for me. But I also share it because it literally took us years to get to this point of wanting to do the meal prep, but never actually doing it. And it's something that my husband took reins on. He's the one in control of the meal prepping, of what we're going to cook, when we're going to do it, and how. And I am the sous chef. I'm helping him out in this process. But that's something that I wanted myself, but I wasn't able to do it myself because it's not something that I enjoyed doing on my own. But doing it together is fun. That's why I always say, but we do something with our best friends, with people that we enjoy spending our time with, it's always funner than doing it alone. Some things I enjoy doing alone on my own, while other things are so much funner doing it together. So finding someone else to do it with, it doesn't have to be in that same literal way of both how my husband and I do. We're both in the kitchen, both working, and it's not even a big massive kitchen, but we find a way to work together, how to like flow like the river together. You do this, I do that, right? He's the one, like I said, the chef. Now for you, it might be something different where you hop on Zoom or FaceTime with your best friend and you just chit-chatting while, she's doing her cooking and you're doing your cooking. Or with your kids, where you're also teaching your kids how to cook. Or maybe another way that you can think of. And if there's other ways, please share. So the way it helps all of us to tap into this creative flow and get our creative juices flowing to how we can, meal prep and prepare our meals for the whole entire week. The reason for why we started doing that is because I found myself skipping meals, because for me, focusing on my business was more important than eating. The preparing a meal and taking the time and pause out of my day was causing me discomfort, was causing me anxiety, and I didn't want to think about it. Whereas for my husband, he would think about food all the time. So it was only natural for him to take control of this part of our family, of our first business together, which is a family. So it can flow easier and more effortlessly. So I can focus on other things that to me were more of a priority. And I can focus on me as well and have more time to do all these things. It's time management as well. And it took time to get to this point. But this comparison culture, where I know for some women, it could in a way triggered them to feel like they're not good enough. They're not doing enough. They're not using their time wisely. That they're failing in some way. But perhaps questioning it in the way of, do you enjoy making meals every day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? If the answer is yes, then you continue doing what you enjoy. For me, I don't enjoy that. I would much rather take that food, warm it up, and eat it. And that's it. While other people love and enjoy the process. To them, that's their sacred time as well. And I just want to say, to each their own. Figure out what your own is to you, who you are in that process. And you're feeling triggered by something, question that. That is an opportunity, that is a call to go within, to understand yourself, who you truly are, and that program. But just because you're seeing something online and it looks great and it looks fun and it looks like and feels like something that you want, does not mean that you actually want it. There might be a part of that you want. Maybe it's the meal itself that you want. Maybe it's the process itself. Question what is coming up for you. What part of you is being triggered in that trigger, and who you are, and what is that program that's coming up. Because if you don't feel good, it's the program. But if you feel good, then it's the true authentic you that's coming through. Another one, this belief that productivity equals value, that we are valuable, and we are essentially saying that our busyness, that us being busy, means that we are successful and that we're going to feel fulfilled when we're busy. But sometimes you find yourself not wanting to do anything and struggling internally with having to be busy, having to do this and this and that, where realistically, you really just want to be. You want to sit and be alone. You want to ponder. You want to reflect. You just want to do nothing at all. And when you feel that way, remind yourself that doing nothing at all, sometimes, and actually more often than not, it is the most important thing that you could possibly do, because you get to be with yourself and understand yourself, and you get to rest physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And I'll bring in, the feminine and the masculine for a moment here. I'll talk about it a lot in the group, in other videos that I do live in the group. But for this moment, I'll talk about it in this way, is that the feminine, and you as women, you have your cycles. Every month, you are quite literally in your feminine. And this is the times where you usually will find yourself struggling internally being in your feminine, because the feminine requires you and asks you to be in the moment, to be present, while the masculine is asking you to do and be productive and achieve and accomplish and do. While you are in your feminine, your reminder and your job in that moment is to be in your feminine, to be present, to understand it, to understand yourself, and remind yourself that you are living in a culture that celebrates accomplishments, achievements, busyness, this hustle culture. But how realistic is it for you to be 100% productive, to always be doing something every minute of your waking day? How realistic is it for you to have this expectation of yourself? Hey Rebecca, how are you doing, beautiful? Long time no see. Rebecca says, I always forget you go live right after. Right after the Sacred Circle. Yeah, I didn't even get to go to the bathroom. I just hopped on right on the live to get going, and to share the energy of where I was during where I was and where I am as well, because this is something that I'm going through as well. I am in my feminine right now, quite literally working through the masculine and the feminine with doing and being, and reminding myself, everything that I'm sharing with you is what I am going through myself. Some months it's a little bit more challenging, because seasonally wise, this is where, now look outside. Today's spring equinox. It literally is about the yin and yang, the light and the dark, the doing and being. It's normal to be in this energetic space where you look outside and all the animals, all the wildlife, all the trees, everything is just busy, and going and growing. And here I am in my state of being, taking things at my own pace, going on my own pace, and reminding myself that I'm not competing with anyone. Life is not a race. No one gets to win at life, even though we do have these unrealistic beliefs of what winning is at life and what losing is. And it's not to say that it's not realistic when we feel that we're losing. It is, because this is where you are, this is what you're going through. But when we pause and we start to reflect back on what we've gone through, we start to little by little recognize that it's not about winning or losing. It's about enjoying the process. See, you don't see a tree competing with another tree for, look how tall I am, look how much I've grown. They are focusing on themselves and they're enjoying the journey of growing together alongside others. Trees actually help each other to grow. What we don't see underneath is how trees actually help and support one another to grow. And not just trees among trees, it's all the plants, how they work in unison, how they work together and support each other without all of these human things. And we can be more like nature because we are nature. Rebecca says, you should have gone to the bathroom. I know I should have, but should have, would have, could have. And yeah, you can replay the beginning. There was other things in there as well. And then Rebecca says, yep, the masculine and the feminine. And then she says hi to Laura. And then Rebecca says, being off socials has contributed to me feeling the state of being. And that is actually a really beautiful reminder that we are social media itself is neither good or bad, but it is so overwhelming in a way of, I want you to think back to when you went to a store and your parents either told you you can pick any ice cream you want out of all of these ice creams, or you can pick any candy you want out of all of these candy, or you can pick any toy you want out of all of these toys. How overwhelming or exciting it felt for you to have all of these options and all of these choices, that you still found yourself most likely going to something that you knew and not trying something new. And social media is like that ice cream store times 100. It's like that candy store times 100. Like that toy store times 100 or 1,000. Where there's just so many possibilities, so many people, so many ideas, so many different things, depending on where you are in your life, that it could trigger and re-trigger, that it can add and it can take away. So we're talking about, driving people to prioritize work over well-being, and recognizing that. And another massive one is fear of failure. How we all have this fear of failure, and we forget that in order for us to be successful, we need to experience failure. We need to understand what failure is in order for us to understand what success is. One does not exist without the other. Success, we wouldn't know what success is without knowing what failure is. Thomas Edison, it took him 999 attempts to create a light bulb. And he was asked by one of his assistants, how can you fail time and time and time again and not give up until you finally created that light bulb? And his response was really beautiful, is that I did not fail. I just saw 999 ways of how not to invent and create a light bulb. And that's a mindset that eludes most people. But it's a mindset that is available for all of us to have and acquire. It is a program that he received and rewrote to the one that works for him. Because in that process of what most will refer to as failure, and he saw as attempts, saw that opportunities, just different ways how I didn't create it. He actually created many other things and discovered many other things in the process. He learned so much more through his quote unquote failures that brought him to success. But to him, each and every attempt was success because it brought him closer to success. He learned a ton through each and every attempt, through each and every failure. And you get to learn just as much, if not more, by you waking up every morning and choosing to do you, choosing to do life, and finding joy and excitement for the journey itself. The goals at the end are great. Goals are great. They're reminders that, we have something to work towards, something to achieve. And just a reminder that you can do and achieve everything that you want. But that is not what we live for. We don't live for these end results. We'll forget that it is the process itself. It is life itself that we are meant to find joy within, to enjoy the journey itself and not run towards the end goal or destination. So many fear that if they aren't constantly achieving, they will be deemed inadequate or worthy, that they're not good enough, that they're unworthy, that you don't deserve this or this or that because you didn't spend your whole entire day being productive and getting things done, leading them to overextend, to overstretch themselves in pursuit of validation and acceptance. But they forget, we all forget this, that this validation and acceptance, it's not an external pursuit. It's an internal pursuit, which means that you need to figure out how to validate and accept yourself and see yourself worthy within you without all of this external validation from anyone. That what anybody says or does doesn't mean anything. And apply this approach not to just the mean and hurtful things that people do, but all the good and the praise that you get from people. Learn to, yes, take it in and accept it and say, thank you. I appreciate that. I love that. Thank you for seeing me and hearing me. But not depend on that. Because when you become dependent on that, what happens when all of that is taken away? And you're alone living in the forest by yourself with no one else. Then where are you going to find that validation? Where are you going to find that acceptance? Where are you going to find that proof that you're worthy if the external is taken away from you and you're left with just you? How can you give that to yourself when you don't know how to? Because you've learned how to be dependent on the external. It causes you to disconnect from yourself, from your inner true self, from your inner being. Constant busyness and productivity leave little time for self-reflection and the introspect and self-care, causing people to lose touch with their true desires, with their true selves, with their passions, with their curiosities, ultimately eroding, like rust erodes, eroding their sense of joy and fulfillment. Misguided priorities. This one is a good one. The priorities that we think are priorities are misguided because more often than not, they're not our priorities, not our priorities, they're somebody else's. Somebody else's priorities that they have given to us and delegated to us to do. And we, as good girls, said, yes, I will do that because it's important to you. So if it's important to you, it's important to me. By doing that, little by little, you will lose all the senses of who you are because you will continue to put other people first and doing everything for everyone and forgetting who you are because you don't have any more time left for yourself. So misguided priorities, placing excessive value on external achievements which detract from life simple joys, life's simple experiences and simple pleasures, leaving individuals feeling perpetually unsatisfied and unfulfilled despite their accomplishments. How many of you have accomplished unimaginable things in your life and you still feel inadequate? You still feel that it's not enough. You still feel unfulfilled. Why? Why do you think that is? I want you to think and ponder on why you think that is, without me giving you all the answers. I'm not here to give you any answers. I'm here to just suggest and help and remind you of the things that you already know. I don't have all the answers for you. Only you have all the answers for you. Loss of authenticity. The pressure of constantly performing or having to perform and achieve, it leads us to prioritize external validation over being true and authentic to ourselves, over choosing ourselves, sacrificing yourself and your true self and your values and your beliefs and your boundaries in the pursuit of societal approval. I bet you this one rings deep for all of you, no matter your gender. This is something that has been industrialized into all of us, to put everything and everyone outside of ourselves, and leading us to feel that we're not even allowed to be ourselves, that we're not going to be liked or loved or appreciated or seen for who we are. A fear of judgment of who we truly are versus I will be who you want me to be because I want you to love me. Instead of what true love is that I am me, and if you love me for me, that's great. And if you don't love me for me, there are other people who you will love for who they are. And last one, but of course not the least, is it leads us to burnout and overwhelm, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, when we find ourselves being drained, when we stay in the state of mind of having to do, having to accomplish, having to reach and achieve. Loss of emotional burnout, the relentless pursuit of productivity. And relentless is the key here, where we feel like it's relentless, it's just never ending. Our productivity and success often leads to burnout, leaving people physically, mentally, and emotionally, and spiritually exhausted, unable to experience true joy and fulfillment in their life. That it's almost like zombie mode, as I'll call it, where you can find yourself feeling like just like a zombie. It's the same thing over and over and over and over again. And when will I feel good? When will I feel happy? The answer is simple, yet it's not. It's when you will allow yourself to. And when you allow yourself to is when you understand yourself and your programming, and you start to question it. And in questioning it, you're rewriting it and allowing yourself to be yourself. So you will become happiness and joy instead of trying to be. But in the trying, you will learn how to. And you will become happiness and joy and love and hope and trust and wealth and all of its meanings. So, how was that one for you? Deep enough? Shall we go deeper? I see there were comments on here. Let me open them up on my device so I can see them better. There we go. So we don't hear me twice. Laura said, it's unrealistic for me to always be doing it, but it is something I have struggled with. It causes me to burn out or start hating to do something that I really love. Yeah, that well said. And this is a reminder as well that even though you love what you do, it is important to reel back on what you loved that you do, and the times in your cycle. And all of us humans, we go through cycles, monthly, seasonally, we go through cycles. When you are in a cycle of doing less and being more, that is the balance itself. Each and every day, it is up to you to figure out what that balance means, looks, and sounds like to you. That you're going to spend a little bit more time being or a little bit more time doing. And if you force yourself to do the things that you love to do every single day, even though you feel like you need a break from it, then you, like Laura said, you can start hating to do something that you really love to do. And I know you don't want to do that. I know I don't want to do that. Because I enjoy doing what I do, but there's times that I just do it slower, or I do it a little bit less, or don't do it at all. That's why when it comes to social media, I take it on my own pace, and I don't put this massive expectation on myself to always be present on social media. Because if I'm present for everyone else, I'm not present for myself. It can drain the energy out of me, and I recognize that it does that, and I take breaks. And even though I do my live videos, some of you already know this, that I don't go back to the comments. Rarely do I go back the same day, but sometimes I don't go back to them for days or sometimes weeks. And the reason for that, number one, is because I respond to them as I go. And number two, and this is the reason why I do that, so I don't go back to them. And number two is that it takes a lot of energy to do a live video. Not a lot, but enough energy. And some days it takes more than others, that I need to do me and just essentially cleanse myself of everybody else's energy. It's not to say that it's good or bad energy, it's just that it's somebody else's energy that I take on, and I carry that on me, with me, and it's not mine to carry, it's everybody else's. So I send it back to them, because I know that each and every one of you is more than capable and able to manage your own energy, even if you feel like you can't. That it's yours, it's nobody else's. What else? And then Rebecca says he finally had the right apprentice. LOL. Yeah, I think that's talking about my husband. Girl, the thing is, we may have priorities, but when we change and our priorities change, then we are all confused. Yeah, and that is actually part of the process. That's a great point. It's part of the process that really just reminds us of our growth. When we feel that confusion, take a moment to see your growth. Because you're confused, because it's like with kids. One phrase I remember that was said to me is that don't get comfortable with your kids, because the moment that you get comfortable with your kid, they're going to change on you. You are your own kid. You continue to raise yourself. Don't get comfortable with yourself, because the moment you get comfortable, you're going to change. You're going to become a new version of yourself. And you're supposed to feel confused and disoriented. There's no handbooks on this either. That now you got to figure out, you also got to grieve your previous version of yourself. That's something that we forget. We're not taught this part. That when we feel this confusion, is that we have grown to a new version. We have evolved to a new version of ourselves, and that we need to grieve that previous version and let her go. And in doing so, we're taking a moment to recognize the new version of ourselves, who we are today, that we've been working towards becoming, and celebrate that. Grieve and celebrate. Grieve and celebrate. Death is not the end. It's the beginning. And we grieve at funerals, and yet we celebrate life. Some cultures don't even grieve, they just celebrate. But grieving is also important. It is part of the process. You can't escape it. If you try to escape it, it'll hunt you down, it'll find you, and when you're at your lowest, to remind you. It just, like, darkness just comes and comes and comes and becomes darker. And I smile about it because I have been and done that, and I know you have as well. And if you can do that, you can do anything. Just a reminder for each and every one of you, not only what you had survived through, but how you learn to thrive through things and through life. And that you can do it all, but not all at once. Pace yourself. It is not a race. It is a journey to be loved, admired, and cherished every single day. And not to get into check, 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 check. Even though it might feel great, some days it won't. And you love the check marks. So if you love that, maybe that's where you need to take a pause from. Those check marks, to just be and not do those things until you can go back to that and do that later, where you feel re-energized and you feel like yourself again, and you feel grounded and you feel steady, and then you will be fully present and available to do that. I love the emojis Rebecca has been sending. Is this one special? Like, oh. I love that one. Rebecca says, I've accomplished more than anyone I know, and yet I feel like a failure. Why? And then it says, oh, that is a great question. Why? Take a pen and paper and journal on the why, to help you see and understand why. Because the why is one of the most powerful questions. And you can understand why. A lot of the why would be what I said, but it goes deeper than what I've shared today. It goes much deeper. It goes into that voice, that narrator that you have, that voice of the gremlin, that voice of the inner critic that you have within you, that tells you why. And you will learn so much from that voice that you will not learn anywhere else. You are your own teacher. And asking that question why, and then answering it. Asking is, what I'll call that, is personal development. Asking you shall receive, right? Asking you shall find. And then the personal growth is the doing part, where you will do by answering. Answering usually in the writing form, and it comes through in ways and words that no one else can give you. Only you can. They might have given you them, but now they become your words. And then Rebecca says, I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing right now, but I can't help but judge my own process. Judging our own process is very, very normal. And see, judging, it is normal because it's almost like you're questioning why this is happening. But pausing, that is the missing ingredient here. Pausing on that judgment and understanding. Judging is also having opinions. It's questioning. It's understanding. It's like when you're in class and a teacher is teaching you a lesson, right? Let's say it's a history lesson, because you are your own history. Your teacher is teaching you a history lesson, and you are listening. You're trying to understand. And what you're doing in that process is what we refer to as judging. You're trying to understand the perception, trying to understand the story. You're trying to translate it in the way that you understand, in your own words, in your own dialect. Because the teacher's teaching you in one way, but you understand it through your lens, through who you are. So judging that's what we're doing. We're trying to understand ourselves in the process through these lenses that we have and through our external experiences. So it's neither good or bad, but the emotional state that judgment can create often is a negative one, where it's actually meant to be a positive one. And this is something that society has taught us throughout our life and existence. This is the computer program that we have received. So, which just means that you can change that in a positive way. And it is emotional process. It's where you focus on the feeling that you're experiencing within this judgment and choose a better one. The one that you can realistically experience right now. It could be, okay, well, I'm judging myself in this and this and that way. And if I was a child, how would I judge myself? How could I get excited about this part of scientific process that we refer to as judgment in this moment? And then going with where that takes you. And then Rebecca says, I am proud of the previous version of me, so it was hard to let go. Major grief. So I would ask this question of you. It's very normal to grieve the previous version of yourself. All of us go through that because we fall in love with a certain version of ourselves and we struggle to let go because we, in one way or another, feel like we can't do better. Now, this was the best, but shifting the focus from the previous version onto the present, current version of you. What are the 5 things that you love the most about this present version of yourself? Just the 5 things. And you can share them down below. You can journal about these things, and sometimes it can just be a seed that you continue to water throughout the day. And then you can add to those 5 things, because you're not just limited to the 5 things. The goal here is to start with the 5 things that you love the most about this current and present version of yourself, to help you grow and expand and shift the focus from the previous to the present version of yourself. Because otherwise you're living in the past and you're not living in the present. And I know you want to live in the present, as we all want to live in the present, because this is where we feel the greatest. Because we feel connected. Some do find themselves feeling disconnected, but it just means that there's a little bit more healing that they need to do so they can learn how to really truly appreciate the present moment. And then Rebecca says, oh girl, I took a pause from the check marks for 5 years. So how ready are you to resume those check marks? Or perhaps not at all. Just because we love doing something 5 years ago does not mean that we want to continue doing that. Because how many times have you been reborn within these 5 years? Who you are now is not who you were 5 years ago. So you have a different way of being, different way of living. You have different curiosities, perhaps. Some of them might be the same and others will be different. You have different passions. You have different things that excite you and motivate you and inspire you. You have different goals and different dreams. Yes, some of them might be the same, but many of them most likely are different. Or different in some ways and not entirely different. So I feel like that's a lot. And like I said, I can go deeper, but that's for another time. Otherwise, yeah. Next time I'll have this conversation with you all will be in a little bit of a different way. Even if we're talking about the same topics, the same subjects, they come through in different ways because I'm a different version of myself each and every time I go live. Because I grow, and every day, just like you do. I learn new things every day, just like you do. And new connections are made every single day, just like you have in your life. When you learn something new, it connects to something that you learned throughout your life. And you actually create new neural pathways when you learn something new. So if you are feeling low and down, maybe it's because you have not learned very many new things. And that is where you go. But chances are, if you're watching my videos and you're watching this one, you have, and you continue to learn new things. So other than that, thank you, everyone. I will be uploading this one to my podcast. And if you're not subscribed to my podcast, which is Get Your Shit Together with Yana Kasperczak on your favorite podcast platform, then go and subscribe and listen on the go anywhere, anytime you want. And I invite you to share the podcast with your best friends who you know will benefit from this type of information, from these type of videos, podcasts, lessons, live guidance. There we go. I was going to say live guiding trainings, but they're not really trainings. But other than that, thank you, everyone. I will see you, the rest of you, in the rest of the comments. And until then, bye.